I'll tell you guys, there's nothing like the smell of gasoline in the morning. So, the 99 Dyna Super Glide, only the second time I've ridden the motorcycle actually. Miss Kitty, as a nod to the previous owner who customized her. Now that we have explored that, let's explore today's video. Y'all ready to dive into it? Hey guys, welcome to this episode of Rolling with T-Bone. This is episode 5 in the series. So let's dive into it, and I hope y'all enjoy it. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Alright, well, Miss Kitty is awake now. Of course, carbureted Super Glide, old single cam, twin cam. I don't know, I think this is a twin cam. I don't know, I can't remember. It's bad to be old and forget stuff, guys. But nonetheless, what she is today is the Chariot for episode 5 in Rolling with T-Bone Presents Spooktober. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are new here, welcome in. My name is T-Bone. I shoot motorcycle related content and, well, any kind of content really. As you're about to see with Rolling with T-Bone Presents Spooktober, if you are here and you're old here, welcome back. You made it into episode 5. If you're new here, only thing I really ask is that maybe you go back and watch a few of my videos and make sure that I'm right for you. Check out 1 through 4 in Rolling with T-Bone Presents Spooktober. The week before Halloween, and here we are. I know this is not my regular day for shooting videos, or well, every day is a regular day for shooting videos, but I know this is not my regular Monday episode because I wanted to add this movie into the Spooktober collection because it is my second favorite scary movie series. Oh well, anyway, if you're here, welcome in episode 5, guys. Rolling with T-Bone Presents Spooktober. And today's episode, we talk about Friday the 13th. Alright guys, now listen, New Line Cinema, a smart egg company, just a nod to the flashback. New Line Cinema was actually able to buy the rights to Friday the 13th, so that's why we ended up with Freddy vs. Jason, and we ended up with some really cool movies. But we're talking about the original Friday the 13th, which basically was only made because it was a money grab off of the success of Halloween. Now, we start out with the original Friday the 13th, and I know everybody's first thought is Jason Voorhees, and because of the movies going on to become cult classics, that is the right thought to have. But we open with kids, teenagers, making their way to sing Kumbaya, My Lord, at the camp. And it opens up with the killer's perspective. And this was kind of the first movie that really capitalized on looking at the killer view, the first person view we would call it today, which would go throughout the entire movie. But 2 of the camp counselors slip off to go commit sin and cave into their carnal desires, and they end up getting killed, which leads to the opening of Friday the 13th. I don't really credit them first 2 counselors with the first kills, although on film they are the first kills. But we open up with some more campers making their way to the camp in what was considered then present day. That's how they announced it. Future T-Bone, put the date that this movie actually came out, because I do not want to mess that up. But anyway, when we find our counselors making their way in, the first counselor that really caught my attention was Annie. Annie was on her way to the camp to be a cook, and of course she arrives in a small town where she has you know, starts hearing the horror stories about Camp Blood, and she meets the town crazy named Ralph, who tells her that the camp is doomed and she's going to die if she goes to the camp. You know, all that cheerful stuff that a unsuspecting teenager wants to actually hear. But Annie hitchhikes out with an old trucker who's going past the camp, or going past the road that leads to the camp. Annie gets out of the truck, thanks for the ride, he tells her to be careful, and then she gets picked up by a Jeep. Now, this might have been the first clue in the entire movie that Jason Voorhees was not the killer, because I'm pretty sure if you follow the lore, Jason Voorhees don't know how to drive. But I'm not here to break down the lore of the movie, or to break down the the plot holes, because there are some plot holes in every good movie series. There's plot holes, but it's meant to be supernatural, so you're not meant to actually know the rules of the game. But Annie gets picked up by the person in the Jeep, and she's just talking away, and she says, hey, don't you think, wasn't that the turnoff for Camp Blood, or sorry, Camp Crystal Lake? She starts panicking, and she jumps out of the Jeep as it's going down the road, running through the woods. Poor Annie becomes the first casualty of the present day, and she gets her throat slit in the woods. Now, the camp counselors all have pretty well much but Annie assembled at the camp. Mr. Christie, the guy who's bought the camp, is busy getting things prepared for the kids to come in. He has to leave and go to town, so the counselors are left on their own. And guys, Kevin Bacon, that's right, Kevin Bacon makes his debut in a horror series in this movie. I'm not sure if it was Kevin Bacon's very first movie, but I know he was very, very young in this movie. But again, it goes back to what we've kind of talked about as some of the themes of the horror genre, or there's some pretty big name actors from today who's got their humble beginnings in those 70s and 80s horror movies. But the killer goes on a rampage. Of course, everybody gets killed but one girl, who is the heroine. And y'all are going to think I'm a bad YouTuber and I'm a bad movie reviewer, because I can't remember her name. Future T-Bone, put her name in right here. Character. Anyway, but Friday the 13th, guys, was one of those movies, like I said, it was a money grab at the time, and being a money grab, it was done very low budgeted, but man, it turned out to be just a great movie. And of course, there's a lot of what they call in that industry filler scenes, F-I-L-L-E-R, filler scenes, that they just use to add time to a movie. But the jump scares, guys, there is, I have mentioned this lady in my videos before. Her channel is called Cat Watches Horror Movies, K-A-T, Cat Watches Horror Movies. And I watched her reaction to the original Friday the 13th. And guys, all these years later, those jump scares in Friday the 13th still work. Opening of a door, turning on a light, turning around and someone's there, hearing a strange noise. Kat grew up as not a horror movie watcher. She never watched horror movies until she started her YouTube channel. And even she says, wow, those jump scares are legit. And that was kind of the appeal of a good horror movie, is if you're sitting there watching it and it can make you scream out loud, then you've gotten yourself involved in a pretty good horror movie. And guys, Friday the 13th is one of those horror movies that actually holds up to the test of time. You know, I can remember when I very first watched the original Friday the 13th. It was in the 80s when I originally watched it, but the one scene that made me jump out of my skin was the scene where Kevin Bacon is laying on the bed. Him and his girlfriend had just done the deed, so to speak. All of a sudden, hands come out from under the bed, and an arrow gets shoved through his throat, through the bed, through his throat. One of the goriest kill scenes you'll ever see in a good old-fashioned horror flick. I actually can remember seeing that scene for the first time and going, wow, that actually got me. That made the old pulse race a little bit. But that's kind of the way it is with those old horror movies, guys. Decades later, 40 years, 50 years later, those movies are still holding up for new generations. And, you know, I can't go out on a limb and say that's because the people who made it knew what they were doing, or that's what they wanted to come across. You know, I don't know what these people were thinking when they made these movies. I have no clue. All I can tell you is what I was thinking the first time I saw them, or what, and all you know for a fact is what you felt the first time you watched them. But we come down to the end of this movie in a spectacular fight. The battle at the end of this movie went for quite a while. Now, I will go ahead and reveal who the killer in this movie is, because it sets up context for the rest of the Friday the 13th series. Of course, you know, if you're just a casual horror movie fan, you may not actually know this, but Jason Voorhees was not the original killer in the original Friday the 13th movie. The original killer in the original Friday the 13th movie was Jason's mother, a lady named Pamela Voorhees. Now, Pamela Voorhees' character is one of those that went off the rails. She just went completely off the rails. But, you know, Michelle, you told me that this bike's hard to find neutral in. This is the first big twin I've ever had that's really easy to catch neutral in. But nonetheless, I'll digress. Pamela Voorhees, of course, had to live with the fact that camp counselors, as she so accuses them, let her child Jason die, let him drown in the lake, nobody was keeping an eye on him, so on and so forth. So that's kind of the driving factor behind her vengeance, as she blames the counselors because they didn't do anything to save her son. So that's what set Mrs. Voorhees up on her killing spree, and made a good impression. And they didn't think that Friday the 13th was going to make such a good impression because they thought that horror fans would just see it as what it was meant to be, was to capitalize off of the success of John Carpenter's Halloween series. But man, they really underestimated it, because Friday the 13th took off, and in a lot of people's eyes, mine included, Friday the 13th surpassed Halloween. And I know what you're going to say, T-Bone, that's impossible, but in my mind, they ran together, they ran even. They went movie for movie, but I always was a little bit more drawn to the character of Jason Voorhees, who would come along in part 2 as the new killer. The story of Jason Voorhees kind of gets distorted as the movies progress, because he basically morphs from this little kid who drowned everyone thought drowned in the lake to this unstoppable, you know, hockey mask wearing killing machine. And over the course of the movies, they really started to set up who Jason was. You know, it's kind of one of those things where he took on a life of his own, as in, we can't kill him, we can't stop him, we don't know what to do with him. And there's some other characters that came out of that series that really got their start in the horror movies genre, because Corey Feldman was he was that arcing character that came along, I think in part, it was either 3 or 4, I think it was 3, but anyway, Jason kind of just kept going on a killing spree. Now, part 2 was a great movie. It started a whole new story for Jason. I really lean toward part 3 as a great movie. 4 and 5 were also great movies. These movies, storylines aren't so well because you started telling the story. But my favorite movie coming out of that whole series, outside of part 1, like I said, I love all of them. I love the original Nightmare or Friday the 13th, but I loved Jason's Dead. Jason Goes to Hell, the Final Friday is what it was called. I actually thought that one was a very good movie, but I want you to go watch that movie for yourself, and maybe Jason Goes to Hell will make it into next year's, if we're still alive and doing this, God willing. Friday the 13th will, Jason Goes to Hell, the Final Friday, will make it into the next series. But for now, guys, Friday the 13th, in its own subtle way, turned out to actually be a groundbreaking movie. And when you watch Friday the 13th, it still has that moment of shock. Those elements that you need to say that you're going to stand apart in the horror genre. Friday the 13th does that. Of course, Halloween does that. And that goes a long way. Now, in the series, if I'm going to say what would be my least Friday the 13th, my least favorite Friday the 13th movie, thank you for seeing me, brother, and not running me over. I appreciate that. It's probably going to be, it's either, I think it's part 8, Friday the 13th, part 8, or future T-Bone check on this, but it's Jason Takes Manhattan. I really was just not a fan of Jason Takes Manhattan, because it could have been called anything but a part of the Friday the 13th series. Welcome back, guys. Sorry about that. And I'll tell you, I do it to myself every single time. Apparently, I've got this masochist tendency to bring myself to town whenever the train's down here. Anyway, but yeah, guys, Halloween is well, next week. Yeah, next Monday. But guys, Friday the 13th, there it is, the original Friday the 13th. And like I said, guys, in my ranking system, I rank Friday the 13th right up there at the top, number 1. It runs number 1, number 2 with Nightmare on Elm Street. These are, of course, in my rankings, my go-to movies when I just want to go watch something that I know I'm going to enjoy, that I'm excited still after all these years to watch. And as far as just sitting down, and I know this is going to kind of sound, it's going to kind of sound contradictory, But as far as my just sit down and watch an entire series goes, probably Friday the 13th actually might rank a little higher than just sitting down watching the series of Nightmare on Elm Street from beginning to end. Which I can do that, but probably I'll sit down and go to Friday the 13th before I will Nightmare on Elm Street. I know that sounds weird to say after I ranked them number 1, number 2, but again, that the Nightmare, you know, the Nightmare on Elm Street series, you kind of got to pick it apart just a little bit. You kind of got to choose your movies that you. But I feel like with Friday the 13th, from the first movie all the way up to the last movie, which the last movie in that series, I'll touch on it just real quick. It's called Jason X. Now, to get yourself prepared for the movie Jason X, you actually have to take your mind out of the Friday the 13th series, because Jason X, Jason gets froze in a cryogenic chamber and he gets sent into outer space. Yes, I said it. Jason X is set in outer space. And it kind of came along because you had Leprechaun in outer space, Jason X, which took place in outer space, and I'm sure before it's over, somebody else will get sent into space. Of course, they did that with the, if you're a fan of the Evil Dead series, you'll know that. They took Evil Dead, the television series that they made, and they sent, you know, they sent Ash to outer space, or to, at least to a very far future setting. But nonetheless, who knows what the future will hold for that. But anyway, guys, I'll tell you what, episode 5 is in the bag. Friday the 13th, and there's a lot of there's a lot of information on this movie, guys. There has been a lot of Comic Cons done with the original characters. There's been a lot of interviews, a lot of kind of casting couch stuff. But probably I will mention this: Kane Hodder, K-A-N-E-H-O-D-D-E-R. Kane Hodder is probably my favorite person to play Jason in the series. He plays, of course, later on, he took over the role of Jason Voorhees, and I'm among the people who will say to you, Kane Hodder was the best Jason Voorhees, bar none. But that, again, just comes back to personal preference, and personal preference says I like Kane Hodder as Jason Voorhees. But guys, episode 5 in the bag. Next week is Halloween, guys. Who's going to win the day on Rolling with T-Bone Presents Spooktober? There will be 3 movies, all by the same person. I did that, like I said in some of the other videos, I did that for Rolling with T-Bone, or the Rocking, Shocking October of Motos and Mayhem, and it turned out to be 5 movies, all separate movies, done by Rob Zombie. Now, I'm going to do 1 episode for Halloween. All 3 movies that I'm choosing from this one creator is going to go into the exact same video, because I don't have time that Halloween day, or that Monday before Halloween, to just upload videos all day. But nonetheless, you're running out of time for T-Bone's Halloween challenge, which is to record yourself sitting down and reacting to a horror movie. If you do get a chance to do that before Halloween, come back to this video, say challenge finished, I will go to your page and watch your movie. And I want to welcome in new subscribers. I do have some new subscribers. I want to say hey to you guys. Thank you for subscribing and coming along. And go check out some of these other guys that I've mentioned before. Flipping the Blue Mule. A new one to me is Seventh Sentinel. Sid, she makes awesome content. I've gotten a chance to talk to her in Rainy Rider's live streams and stuff. Very cool young lady making great content. Rainy Rider, check out Rainy Rider. Nothing at random. Loose Juice. My brother Loose Juice is supposed to be taking the challenge and then upstepping it a little bit. But I want to say to those guys who will be leaving out this week, may have already been left out. Some of them may already be in Florida at the time on Thursday that this video will premiere. You guys be careful. Know that old T-Bone's got some love for y'all in his heart. Have fun at Forgotten Angels. Give love and hugs from T-Bone. Tell everybody I wish I could have been there, but scheduling wise I just could not make it happen. And y'all have a blast at Forgotten Angels, man. That's what it's all about. But episode 5, guys, I'm going to drop it off right here. Welcome to you all new subscribers. I just did my videos just like this right here. You have been watching Rolling with T-Bone Presents Spooktober, episode 5. Friday the 13th is in the bag. And until the next time, guys, y'all take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and hey, thanks for watching.